It is Last Watch. I'm your host, Tony DuShane, and that's your host, Bernard Meisler. Today we're talking about Fleabag, Season 1, Episode 1. I guess you'd call that the pilot. Who knows in streaming days? How you doing, Bernard?
I'm all right, Tony, and glad you're still alive. Tony, back from the dead here.
Yeah.
Or still semi-alive. I don't know. The walking wounded, the sitting wounded, something like that.
I guess we should clue them in. I had an operation. Yeah. Everything's fine, and I'm still a boy.
Yeah. Just be careful how you sit down when you.
Exactly.
So, Fleabag Season 1, Episode 1. So, we're coming at this from two different angles, which should be interesting. Tony just watched the episode for the first time. He's somehow way behind the curve on this.
Well, I'm not to correct you, but I did watch the first 8 minutes of the show and then turned it off when it first came out.
Oh,
and then, so okay. Go ahead.
Iconoclast. Tony the Iconoclast, who in the face of the genius Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who won Emmys, Best Comedy Series, Best Comedy Writing, Best Comedy Actress, Golden Globes, widespread acclaim. Tony's like, eh.
Undeserved.
I thought the show. I think the show is great, and I think it gets better as we go along. And I think I think this is a spectacularly well-written show. It has great characters. It has great dialogue, and I think you could sum it up. The Fleabag character, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, at one point in the episode says, "I'm a greedy, depraved, morally bankrupt woman who can't even call herself a feminist." And then her father says, "You got that from your mother." So this is just like an incredibly, as a writer of fiction occasionally, I kind of like stories that start from the place of somebody who's deeply troubled. Somebody who's, that's like a classic way to start a story. This is a deeply, deeply troubled person who, as far as you can tell from the first episode, her only redeeming quality is her wit and sense of humor. She's just like, picking up guys on the bus, like weird looking guys. And then she goes on a date with the guy, and then she steals money from him. And at the end, she steals the statue that was told to be valuable from her mother-in-law. And that actually, I also thought this is, watching this the second time, I also thought this is a really good pilot because it sets up a lot of stuff for the two seasons. I don't know if there's ever going to be a third season, but the statue actually is very important. Almost all the main characters are introduced except for her brother-in-law and the famous priest who doesn't come until later. Tony, counterpoint.
No, I want to agree with you on one, her character's off the hook. The actors in it rock. The woman who plays her stepmom is from Peep Show, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Mm-hmm. And I totally forgot to find out if people involved from Peep Show are involved in this. Because if you ever watch Peep Show, everything is point of view of each character. It's one of the weirdest. It's what we should do that one.
Okay.
We'll talk about that more later. Okay. But that was fantastic and very jarring to get into because no TV show ever did that. Mm-hmm. So all of that I agree with. But she breaks the fourth wall so damn much. I want to slap her with a fish. Okay. Because the scenes are there. Why are we not staying in her tragedy? This is what drives me absolutely nuts. They're in the middle of a tragedy and she goes, wink to the camera. And I'm like, no,
right.
Stay in the darkness. It's so beautiful what you're creating. Every single time it's there. Whose idea was it to break the fourth wall? I want to slap them with a fish too.
Well, I would imagine it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge, the genius writer behind Fleabag. She also wrote the first season of Killing Eve, which was not one of my favorite shows, but pretty good. She also did a show called Crashing, which is
I loved Crashing with Peter, what's his name?
I don't remember the other.
Yeah. Well, Crashing's great. And see, Crashing is very similar to this show. but he's not looking at the camera.
No, you're thinking of the American Crashing. I'm thinking of
Oh.
the British single season comedy, whatever Crashing. No, not the Pete, what's his name show. No,
Oh,
different show.
I'm such a dumb Yankee.
Yeah.
I got to keep up on the British, the British show.
But as far as the fourth wall stuff, I was thinking about that too, and I somehow knew you were gonna. I somehow knew that was your problem with the show, and I was trying to think like when was that first used? I believe like it goes way back. It's not like a new thing by any means, right? It's like I immediately think of like the Gary Shandling show, if you remember that fantastic show from the 80s. He broke the fourth wall constantly. He always addressed the audience, but I mean, it went back. It's like they used to do it on like off the top of my head, like the Bob Hope, Bing Crosby road movies. They would break the fourth wall all the time.
They would do it. They had a. You have to be selective on why exactly you're breaking the fourth wall and when, and there has to be a reason for it to keep the whole show and scene moving.
Right.
If you cannot break the fourth wall, don't do it. If you break the fourth wall, you better be on point. Okay. And like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he's breaking the fourth wall. A lot of the time, though, if like in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he's not breaking the fourth wall with a wink and a nod. He is a couple of times, but most of it is he's staying in tragedy. So it's what I don't like about Fleabag is when she breaks the fourth wall, she's kind of going, I know more than you. And I'm like, no, I know 3 jokes ahead. Can you just stop doing that because it's driving me crazy? Well, I feel utterly insulted personally by her.
Oh, my goodness. I actually think that it serves a purpose. It gave me a little bit of difficulty at first too, but if you think about it, if there wasn't the fourth wall breaks in this show, it would just be deeply, deeply depressing and tragic. And so maybe that's what you want, but this is supposed to be a comedy. It's a tragic comedy, and it would just be so dark. I mean, in the first, I mean, she doesn't get along with her sister. She's breaking up with her boyfriend. She's getting drunk, she's trying to pick up the cab driver. Her best friend kills herself. I mean, it's freaking dark as hell, right? And she's a hot mess. And,
but even then
you go, hey, whatever. Look at me. Look how fucked up my life is, you know?
Right, and that's what drives me nuts because you can stay in the tragedy and have a comic element to it. Right, but it's almost like when I'm teaching like any writing class or anything, I'm like, in the conflict of a scene, I'm like, why are you trying to break it? Why are you trying to get out of it? Because usually people are too nervous to stay into the conflict, even when they're writing. And I'm like, no, stay in that, dig deeper, keep them in the room. Don't let anyone out of the room. Keep them there to resolve everything. And she just keeps getting out of it. It's almost like she gets to escape her tragedy on every scene. Yeah. And I don't like that. No, she can't escape the tragedy.
I will disagree vehemently and vociferously. I think that's the genius of the show, that it's like this bifurcated show, that it's like a total dark tragedy and a lighthearted comedy at the same time. And that kind of requires her to constantly have this character, Fleabag, who's breaking the fourth wall. Otherwise, you just like fucking shoot yourself after you watched an episode of this show.
I love tragedy and depression. But let's go back to the Gary Shandling show. Gary Shandling created the whole thing as meta. Even the theme song is like, it's the Gary Shandling show. Right, it's just like, we're a whole lot. We're just going to throw all this at you because a regular TV show is stupid. So we're just going to guide you through this silliness. Right. And Gary Shandling's a comedic genius. He's got a bunch of stand-up comedy behind him. I really don't know who this actress is, but you know, she's great when she's in scene. I love her in scene. She's amazing in scene. Then she breaks the fourth wall, and I'm like,
you have to, the opening scene when she's getting cornholed. I mean, have you ever seen?
No, I love it.
Then she's like, oh, she's like, then she like talks about what's happening. I don't know. I thought it works, and I think the show
that works.
And the show gets. I think you gotta like give into that, because when I first watched the first episode, I was kind of like, what is this? You know, but you get it works, but I think it's absolutely brilliant that she's able to do what it is that like is bothering you so much about it. It's like two shows in one. You know, there's like it's a comedy and a very dark tragedy side by side, but not mixing in. You know what I mean? Usually like a tragic comedy or a dark comedy, which is one of my favorite genres, would be like there'd be like some really tragic thing, and then a character will comment on like the absurdity of it all and the gallows humor, right? But this is just like she's kind of doing that, but it's without mixing it up. It just sort of lets the tragedy carry on its own path, and she's just giving like the, I don't know, Greek chorus, you know, so almost like a Greek chorus commentary on it, almost more than like the fourth wall, because it's just so prevalent. It's such a integral part of the show.
I got to agree with you on this, on the getting it up the ass scene, because what an amazing place to break the fourth wall when that lovely actor, you know, it's like they're like, we got to roll for you. Okay, what am I going to do? How do you go in and cast for that? You know, we just need you to take your shirt off and gyrate here so we can see what it looks like.
And then she drops the joke, and she's like, all of a sudden, do I have a massive asshole?
Right, exactly.
It's hilarious.
Now when she's in scene and breaks the fourth wall as she's getting it up the ass, I love that. When she goes to the camera and goes, do I have a massive asshole? That could be in scene somewhere else. That could be the tragedy of like, she could even say that with her sister.
No, it could have. No, like, I mean, it could have been written a completely different way, but it was written in this very specific way. And I think that's the genius of the show, is that I've never seen anything like this before. I mean, we've seen, again, like I said in the beginning, the fourth wall's been broken forever. I'm thinking there might even been like some Shakespeare where like there was
in theater, and it's just they find their moment and do it right, and that's what just drives me nuts, because
it's different. Again, I'm just saying it's new and different, and that's why I think you're feeling the like, what the hell is this? Because I had that kind of, but I think it's genius though. It's something new. If it's not genius, at least it's new and different. We've never seen anything quite like this show before.
And I'm glad I watched the whole episode, because when we got to the last scene, when she's in the cab with the statue, that's when I went, I think I want to watch the next episode.
Yeah.
Because she stayed in it. There was no breaking of the fourth wall. She pulls out the statue. She stays in it. We see it. If she broke the fourth wall there, I would have thrown the TV across the room.
I think
she doesn't, and it's so gorgeous.
Yeah. Anyway, I think if our listeners and watchers haven't watched for themselves, I guess they'll have to like decide whether this show is brilliant or brilliantly terrible. I have to say,
they'll have to decide between me and you.
You have to decide
Tony the genius, or is Bernard the genius?
I'm sorry, kids. You're gonna have to choose.
Yes.
It's Tony and I love you very much. This is not your fault.
There's no gray here. Black and white.
But you have to choose between.
You have to.
It's like, at any rate, I would say this is a must-watch, even if you don't like it, just because it's like a very big part of the zeitgeist right now. She's the hottest thing on ice right now. She's gonna write the next fucking James Bond movie. You know, she's. And then,
is she?
Yeah.
Is James Bond going to look at the camera and go, you know, I usually like my return shaken, but this time I like it stirred?
Could be. Well, no, she hasn't done this in her other shows, as far as.
Okay.
It's just the peculiarity of this particular show.
Right when they're in the middle of the fight, the villain goes, I'm usually better than this, but this is James Bond. And then they go back.
I also just want to point out, again, we talked about like pilots, good pilots. This was like, you'll see, it was interesting to having watched the whole show, the 2 seasons, and I don't believe there's going to be another one. I think they're done UK style. 2 seasons were out, but
praise the UK style, because that's how it should be. Tell the story, get out when it's done.
Yeah, instead of milking the dead horse, to mix a metaphor.
Exactly.
The pilot is great. It's just like it really sets up Like, for instance, that banker. Remember the banker who turns her down?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the loan. And he's just something you think like, oh, this is just like another scene to maybe reveal something about her character, how desperate she is, how whatever, amoral she is. But he actually plays an important part in this. So he comes back, and they actually get into it. He has his own episode arc and whatever, and he's a great character. You think he's just this disgusting, cold-hearted banker, just like Get Out, right? And you think like that usually would, but he comes back like when you're not. It's really a great pilot. Everything is very well set up.
And Bernard, you're pissing me off because now I got to watch the rest of the season.
Yeah, no,
because that is another great scene where she goes to take her shirt and you take her sweater off. She forgets she doesn't have a shirt. Right. What a beautiful joke, and what an amazing setup for it.
Yep. And so, and again, it's just really well set up because again, you think like, that's it. It's a joke. She's going to the bank. That's it. She didn't get the loan. It's over and done.
Right.
He comes back for some appearances in other episodes, and he's an interesting character. You think he's a one-dimensional, like cold-hearted banker who's guilty of sexual harassment, right? That's how you could just write that. And but he's got a story behind that too, and he's not. Turns out to be not as horrible as you might think.
He's a nice sexual harasser.
He kind of is,
Aren't some of them?
See, I'm not gonna get into it. But and then of course, the most important character in the series has not been introduced yet. I don't believe he comes in till later in the season. It's probably not into the 3rd or 4th episode, and that's the priest. And you'll see. I won't spoil that for you.
Okay.
That's the part that people really went crazy about too. Was her interaction with this other guy who becomes the main character. And there you go. I'm giving it a big thumbs up. Tony, make up your own damn minds. What are we going to see? You can't watch for yourself? You're too fucking lazy to watch a TV show? God damn it. What are you watching us for talking about TV? Well, of course. Anyway, are we good?
Are we good? Always a pleasure, Bernard.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.